Wait till you see what we have cooking for you for Brandon next.
He's so excited about this.
First, we got to get the nipple pierced.
That's 1,000 subscribers.
We're almost halfway there. 1,000 subscribers, nipple pierced, only one. 2,000 subscribers, both nipples. 3,000, we don't know yet.
I did not consent to the 3,000.
I thought you said Prince Albert.
No! God, no!
Hello! Welcome to Bardic Aggravation, or back to Bardic Aggravation, because we like the returning customers a lot.
Very much.
Right?
Well, I mean, not
Brandon's making
that
friends.
much.
He's never had friends. He's making friends now in the comments section. It's great. You guys thank you.
Friends? I've had friends before.
What friends? Who?
They're not my only friends.
You've watched our class comparison videos between D&D and DC-20. This isn't that today. Today is the first video in a series that we're going to do for beginners because we've been asked by friends of ours, Rick and I, about what is this RPG you speak of? What is Dungeons and Dragons? What is DC-20? What is Pathfinder? What are these things? Because we want to watch your channel, but you make no sense. So yeah, this is going to be a series on the very basic overview of what a role-playing game is, so you can show your friends that don't know what this stuff is and it's difficult to explain. We're going to break it down, little tiny bite-sized pieces. How do you eat an elephant, Brandon?
You start by eating its ankle.
You eat an elephant one bite at a time. The same way you learn one of these new games. Everybody's interested. Here's how you entice them. Give them a, Because I didn't know. Rick tried to introduce me, and Rick couldn't explain how to flush a toilet.
He loves it. He still talks about it to this day.
Yeah, he was just telling me how badly he hated it, but he really loves it, because that's why he's sitting here today. It's all because of this guy.
But anyway, so let's cover just the basis of what is a role-playing game. What is a role-playing game?
A role-playing game is where you sit at a table with people and you create a story together.
That's an aspect of it. That doesn't clear anything up.
Okay. You roll dice.
It's its own thing.
It really
That's
is.
why it's hard to explain, because there really isn't any other game like it, which is also why people love it, because it's so popular. You're only going to get the experience of what you get from a role-playing game by playing a role-playing game. It's a collaborative game, right? Most games you're sitting at a table, which is you're doing with role-playing games, and you're trying to be the winner. You're trying to beat the other players, right? Be the last one standing or whatever. That's not how this works. You're working together toward whatever your outcome is, and that we'll get into that. That can be different for every single game, and you all have a different skill set to help each other win. So it's generally like that. You want to create characters with different skill sets because you're all part of the same group trying to achieve a unified goal. Think of it also, you're playing a game as you're telling a story by playing a character that you created yourself, and now all these characters have to work together just like any superhero team, the X-Men, the Avengers, the Brotherhood of the Ring, what were they called?
Fellowship.
Fellowship of the Ring.
Brotherhood.
These things,
Brotherhood of Evil Mutants was the other one.
The Brotherhood of Evil Mutants.
Say you call yourself
So
a nerd.
you're a team and you all want to have, fill the gaps where somebody is strong, other people are weak, and blah, blah, blah. You're balancing each other out, and you're, again, telling a story. It's collaborative storytelling, as Brandon said, but within the confines of a game. There's very few confines, but you have to have some rails. This is a game where you're just using your imagination all the time. It's an imagination game.
It's imaginative.
And you're doing it with your friends or whoever you're playing with.
So you're playing pretend with your friends.
You're playing pretend with your friends. as an adult.
Absolutely.
And you're allowed to as an adult. It's great.
Wow.
And it's not as it's not as childish as you think.
Isn't it?
It's not.
How so?
It's not. You can get into some adult themes. I mean, there's murder. There's
A lot of murder.
there's thievery.
A lot of that.
There's
Drunkenness, debauchery,
Yeah,
tomfoolery,
All that good stuff.
dickheadery,
I mean, if you're into that kind of
prostitutes,
sure. Brothels.
ne'er-do-wells,
Yeah.
Bars,
crooked politicians.
taverns and bars.
This is starting to sound too much like real life. There are different genres of these things. Obviously, your epic fantasy, like your Lord of the Rings type stuff, that's the most, I would say, probably prevalent, yeah. But you can do a sci-fi one. You can do a cyberpunk one. These are all out there. You can do a post-apocalyptic Mad Max world.
Star Wars,
Star
superheroes.
Wars.
Star Trek.
Superheroes. So I said sci-fi. Alien.
I said
There's all kinds. So we're going to, for the sake of this series, we're going to be talking mostly about your epic fantasy, a la Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, that type of thing. Because obviously Dungeons and Dragons is the main one. When you're choosing a system to play, we strongly believe in DC-20. We are a DC-20 channel because we strongly feel that that is the best system for an RPG epic fantasy game. D&D is kind of your generic brand, right? It's not generic at all, but compared to the other ones, it is the most generic and kind of basic and vanilla. It's also the least fun. It's more restrictive.
It's a big game.
It's the big game. It's the, what is a good entry point for somebody who is just learning RPGs? Shadow Dark is a good one to start if you want to just do a starter one, because those rules are basic, but you're going to get all the different pieces of what an RPG is when playing that, and it's just as fun. We're actually going to play that, a couple one-shots of that, because it's won so many awards and we want to do it. But that's where the things you choose for your character are a bit more basic. You're not going to get overwhelmed at all, but you're still going to get the whole flavor of what this is. So that might be a good one to start some of your players off and your friends off in. Again, we're going to recommend DC-20. It's a big. They're all big games, and it's a lot to learn. But also, unlike a lot of other games, you don't have to learn all the rules.
No, you don't. You don't have to read it from front to
Because
back.
look, this is the player's handbook for D&D, right? That's what is this? 300 and some pages? 3,000?
Quite a big.
I don't know.
It's big.
It's a lot of pages here.
Meaty.
Oh, jeez.
And then you got the Pathfinder. Look, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? This is
Double the
thicker than the
size.
damn Bible.
No.
You could kill. This is a weapon, and this is just the core rule book. There's also the Advanced Player's Guide. All these games have different books. DC-20, of which we speak. This is still in the beta, so it's all just PDF right now, which there will be a link to in the down below. And while you're on your way down there, like and subscribe, because you know you're gonna.
You have to.
You see?
So you don't have to learn all these rules at all. You just have to learn the rules for the character that you're playing. So that's all you're going to do to start. Some people want to learn all the rules of these games as they go, and you can. That's part of the fun if you're a nerd. But if you don't ever want to learn all that stuff, you just need to learn the rules for your character. So it's not as intimidating as it looks or sounds or Brandon makes it out to be. Because Brandon likes to be a killjoy.
I do not like to be a killjoy. Don't stop doing that to me.
Doing what?
Killjoying me.
Gaslighting?
Yeah, gaslighting.
That's not gaslighting.
Yeah, gaslighting. It is.
Rick says it is.
It is gaslighting.
Rick doesn't know what gaslighting is. He doesn't know what a
What's that?
library is.
That's what happened.
What's gaslighting?
It's just what he just did to you. So do you guys feel like that's how you could explain it to someone who wouldn't know it? Like, how would you tell your mom what a role-playing game is? They just like laugh at you, like D&D. I don't know. Like, how would you?
Basically, this is how I told my wife.
There
This is
you
what
go.
hooked her in, and this is an easy way. She is a total introvert, so this was never anything. Even as a kid, she played by herself most of the time. She's from Lithuania, and she would literally use watermelon seeds and pretend they were little seals, and they'd have a fucking adventure. So that's how she played. She is a nerd. She loves adventure novels. She read The Witcher in fucking Russian long before it ever became a TV series. And so she knew all these books. She's into Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, Song of Ice and Fire, all of it. Wheel of Time. She's reading Sanderson now. So basically, when she was like, I don't know what it is. I don't want to play this. But then what is it? She's curious. Like, what are you doing? Take any of those adventure novels that you love, or that the movies that you see, or the TV series that you watch that are any kind of adventure-based thing. What if you could play a game where you're one of the characters in one of those stories, and the choices you make as that character determine where the story goes, how the story ends, what happens, and you're playing this with a group of people who are of the same mindset.
Now that makes sense to me.
That's
the way you said
basically
that
what it
makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Like, you're in the movie, you're in the character, and you're doing your own choices.
So you're turning your favorite movie into a game that you play. That's basically what it is.
Yeah, I would want to change. I would try to be Ned Stark in Game of Thrones.
There you go.
And change my fate. I don't
We
want
can
to lose
help
my
you. Oh, I was gonna say.
change my fate. I don't want to lose my head.
Oh,
So you're not literally playing a character from a literal thing. It's the same stuff. You can. In fact, we're going to get into that a little bit when we talk about just what an overall character is, because that's going to be part of this video today. You're using dice because there has to be some
Probability.
rules or
it's a game of chance, right? Almost. You're playing your game of chance.
yeah. You're making choices as a character. Your character's making choices, and then when you say I want to do this thing, we'll get into what those choices are. You're going to have a game master, a GM. No matter what system you're playing, there's in D&D they call it the dungeon master. Everybody else usually calls it the game master, the GM or DM. And so if you say to the GM as your character, I want to do this thing. I want to convince this shopkeeper to give me this sword for half price. Or I want to attack this person because they just insulted me. Whatever it is, any extreme you could think of, he's going to say, okay, roll a dice and let's see if you are able to do that. Can you accomplish this thing that you want to do? The dice will let you know. So you're going to have different skills and things that determine how high of a bonus you're going to get on that dice roll. If you're good at something and you have to roll the d20, the 20-sided dice. Here's a big one, so I don't know if you can see that, but it's a 20-sided die. That's another thing people don't realize unless they're nerds is that a singular dice is called a die.
Yeah.
D-I-E, spelled the same way as I wish you would die.
Right.
20-sided die. Yeah.
So you're going to roll this. And let's say you're good at this thing, so you get a +5. So if you roll a 10, you roll a 15. That's the basics. The outcome of what you decide to do is determined by your dice roll.
So
That's simple.
You don't always succeed. And
You don't always fail, and you succeed, and
Yeah.
that's what makes it fun. What were you going to say? Something useless?
No, you touched on the game master, but you never
No, I
alluded.
didn't.
You never alluded to the fact of what a game master does for your game.
I alluded to it. I didn't say. What do they do?
They're basically the one who usher you through the story.
They
They're
usher
the,
you through. Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
They
Here's
Guide
your
you.
seat,
they
Brandon.
guide you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They
Here's your
show
seat.
you where you're sitting.
They describe your surroundings. They basically set the tone and what you're doing. They play other characters that you may come upon.
NPCs, non-player characters. You've probably heard that term, but that's where it comes from. A non-player character, which we refer to as an NPC. They control all those people. Yeah. They're the narrator, the person who sets the whole story and tone. It's your world they're playing. It's their world that you're playing in. Whether it's a dark, gritty world or whether it's a happy fairy tale place or whatever.
If it's easier for you to think of them, think of something. Think of them like God.
Yeah,
to
pretty much.
Your world.
Yeah, they're facilitating. If you basically you have to tell somebody what you want to do. You can't just say I do this thing, and they'll tell you how difficult or easy that might be. They determine in combat who you're fighting, and how those monsters or NPCs fight you.
So one person has to take this role at your table.
They have to. You can't play one. You can't play a game without one.
So basically, if you were playing a computer game, that would be the computer running the simulation.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
the GM.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the role of your DM, GM. In a nutshell, there's a lot more to it than that, but we're not trying to make this confusing. You just got somebody who's running the game. And it's a puzzle, right? Everything's creative problem solving. When the DM presents you with a situation, okay, you walk into the tavern and there is blah, 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 blah. It's the bartender. You can go get a drink. You can sit down at a table. You can go dance with the whatever. But then you see somebody who's you don't like and they don't like you. Maybe they're from your past or whatever they decide the situation they give you, right? Well, now you got a problem to solve. Every combat is a problem to solve. How do you solve it? You got to get into this castle or this noble's house. How are you going to get in there? This is a problem to solve. You're going to just try to bully your way in. You're going to try to sneak in. You're going to try to pretend to be somebody else and disguise yourself and get in that way. So again, these are all creative problem solved.
So is that when your character would come in?
Yes.
Each different type of character you can be?
What would your character do in this situation? That's basically the question you're always answering. What would your character do in this situation? Then you figure out how they do it. That's a sump pump, not the toilet. Even combat is a problem. You know, a lot of people like to say, oh, it's combat, so I'm just going to go in there and start hacking away at the monster and roll the dice and get rid of their hit points, the things that keep them alive until they're dead, and then go take a nap and do the same thing. And it can be. That's boring. It's a role-playing game, so if you're not role-playing, it's not a combat simulator, but there's combat in it. So that's what people ask too. Is a role-playing game just a combat game? No. That's one big aspect of it.
That's one of the 3 aspects, right?
One of the main 3 aspects is combat. What are the other 2?
Role-playing.
You're always role-playing, even in combat.
Yeah.
Social.
So you have social encounters. When you're not in combat, you're having social encounters where you're interacting with the world around you, whether that's a town or a village or a tribe of cannibals or a dragon that may or may not want to kill you. Anything you can think of. You can be at the bottom of the sea in an Atlantis type situation, and now what's this all about? So you have skills for all these different things. We're going to get into that. So yeah, how do you traverse the social aspect of this game? How do you meet people you need to meet and talk to the people you need to talk to and get the things that you need to get to from certain NPCs? You got to be given a quest. You got to find out where things are. So
it's about getting your way without hurting somebody too. It's about talking your way through things, sliding into things differently.
You can resolve conflict without combat. That's fun. Sure.
If you guys are familiar with the Fallout series, there's like speech-based challenges basically, so you can use your speech to get out of stuff. So it's like role playing. It's making choices based upon what you don't have to fight every single thing.
Right. You can creatively solve that problem in a different way if you want to. Third aspect.
There's a third aspect.
Exploration.
Oh,
there you go.
And that's huge.
It's huge. That's basically the whole game.
That's the game, because if you're not explorer or an adventurer, why are you walking down the street?
Right.
You're just going to go back to your house and sit down and watch TV. No, I'm an explorer. I'm an adventurer. I am the story.
So yeah, you're exploring the cave. You're exploring the dungeon. You're exploring the abandoned temple. You're exploring the city. You're exploring the ocean. You're exploring these things.
Yeah, don't be afraid to do that stuff.
That's
don't be afraid. Don't say no to everything.
Right. You have skills for these things.
Yeah.
That you
Use
can
them.
pick.
Push them. Flex them out. And if you fail, it's funny too.
It's funny, especially when he can tell you.
Oh my God.
Brandon, there are people, I don't understand this, I don't believe in this crap, I don't believe in any of that stuff, but he can't roll the dice. Will Wheaton, if you know who he is from Star Trek, he can't roll the dice. It's like a curse.
It's cursed.
No matter what dice he's using, it's a weird thing.
I can physically roll the dice. They just
Sometimes.
don't roll in my favor.
Or you'll get like a natural 20 on a initiative roll.
Something that doesn't matter that much. Be like, natural 20, which is a huge... When you get a natural 20 on this D20, something really good usually happens. And if you roll a natural 1 on this D20, it's usually a bad day for you.
Yeah.
So, but you can make that funny. But that's part of the excitement of this, When you roll, it should always be exciting, like what's the outcome going to be? So I think in any system, that 20 on a natural 20 matters, the 1 on a natural 20 matters.
For sure.
Brandon rolls a lot of ones. A lot of ones, especially when it's important not to.
Disproportionately, the number of ones I roll.
You're due for about 20 20s in a row. Like you're just due.
It's been over 2 years, and I don't know when the due is coming. I think this is just what it is. It's just, there's no more like, one day, I'll just get through this unlucky streak. It's just what it is. If you're looking to play a role-playing game, then be a role player. What is role-playing? We should talk about that. What is role-playing? Are you acting?
Yes and no. Role-playing, you basically take on the role of being your character, making choices based upon what you wanted your character to be. If you want your character to be like shifty and evil, kind of make choices that way.
Yeah.
If you want it to be good and goody two-shoes and helping out people, you play them that way. You make choices that are in that kind of that vein.
It's just like you take a part in acting. You take a part and you do what that character would do, but without a script.
Yes, that's
Right?
true.
Without a
You don't
script.
have a script. So you're deciding what the character
You are
says,
Captain Jack
not the
Sparrow,
writer.
and you do what Captain Jack Sparrow would do.
Yes.
What you think you would do.
In any situation. That's role-playing. You can do accents, and you can do big voices, and you can do all that, but that's not that's like frosting on the cake. You don't have to do that to role play.
No.
All you have to do, you can totally be yourself, but as this character, and you're just, as they said, it's the choices you make. What's the depth of how well do you know your character, and why would they make this choice? And that's fun. You know, you're playing somebody else. It's like when you were a kid and, you know, you're playing with your action figures or your dolls or whatever it is you play with, and you were in your imagination, and, you know, it's the same thing.
You were playing Star Wars because you wanted to be a Jedi. You were
Yeah.
out there running around doing that with your friends. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You played with Star Wars figures.
Non-stop. I was obsessed.
Non-stop.
Oh my goodness.
So how do you choose this character you're talking about? Like, how do you, what?
Well, that's the first thing. First thing you're going to do is you got to choose your character.
Okay.
Because you're not playing a role-playing game without that. That's all you're doing is playing your character. That's it.
Does it matter which game I'm playing? I can just pick
No,
a
we're going to
character?
talk about, that's a good question. Because we're going to talk about, like I said, epic fantasy stuff. So you're more
Okay.
in your wizards and your knights and all that. But
Game of Thronesy.
this,
Got it.
yeah, this will fit in all of these systems. You know, again, Pathfinder, Dungeons and Dragons, DC 20.
That's a good one.
They're all generally the same type of thing with some different exceptions. D&D is more limiting. There are plenty of different classes and subclasses and races that you can choose to make your character, but you don't have as many choices as you do in Pathfinder, or especially DC 20. DC 20 is very customizable, but it doesn't have to be for new people. There's just the default thing you can pick for your character while you're getting to know the game. So, but if you really want to create your own customized character, that's one of the things we love the most about DC 20.
And say as a beginner, maybe creating a whole character from the ground up is a little intimidating.
Yeah.
There are pre-made characters out there that you can choose from
Yeah.
and start playing from that.
That would be no fun for me, but for some people I can see how that would help. But
If you wanted to learn the game, it might be easy.
I don't think so. I think it's more complicated because now you're playing with a pre-made character that you don't know how it got there. Remember how you were talking about math in the other video, and you got to show how you reached 4 plus 4, 2 plus 2 equals 4?
That's true.
Right.
If you're creating a character from scratch, and we're going to go over the basics of that, now you know how it works. But if somebody just hands you a sheet of pre-made character, you're going to be like, I don't know what any of this means.
That's why you don't
So I
start.
think it's much more complicated to start with a pre-made character, and I don't recommend it. I recommend it against it highly.
You're building them from the ground up. So when you first start, you're not that great grand adventurer.
Yeah.
You're Luke on Tatooine. You're
you're-
a kid with a dream. You're just a small little guy, and you go into that fantasy you have.
Because it's much like a video game, you are leveling up. That's an aspect of role-playing games. So it's, you know, you get usually from level 1 to 10 or 1 to 20 is how long that's going to go as your character gets more skilled, more abilities, more magic items, more powers, more things, more choices, more spells to cast.
More fun. All right, so how do we start this character building thing? What do we...
You got to choose your class. You're going to hear that word a lot. What's a class exactly?
What's a class?
Like a job. It's like what you do.
It can be a job. It could be a vocation.
Could be a vocation. Could be what you are.
Could just be what you are.
What you are.
Yeah, style.
Like if you're a football player or a baseball player or a professional skateboarder or an Australian breakdancer,
Ooh.
you are considered an athlete, right?
Yeah.
So you're gonna start from there. Do I want to be an athlete? And then you go, well, what kind of athlete? Football player, baseball player, soccer player for you Americans, us Americans. All kinds of different ways. A gymnast, right? Performer, entertainer. That's a huge blanket thing. So that's kind of your class, I would say. Not like a football player wouldn't be a class, but an athlete would, if that makes sense. And then there's subclasses of these classes, and maybe that's where you go. I want to be an athlete. All right, what kind of athlete? I want to be, a boxer. That's my subclass. I'm a boxer athlete.
I'm going to be a professional wrestler.
I'm a teacher. What kind of teacher? I'm a history teacher. Okay, there's your subclass. I want to be a therapist. What kind of therapist? I want a sex therapist.
That's one way
That's
to
your
look at
subclass. I want to be Dr. Ruth.
it. Gotta rest her soul.
Raise your hand if you know who Dr. Ruth is. Most games you're going to have like 13 different classes to choose from. 12, 10, 13. That's a lot. It can be overwhelming. Oh my gosh, what do I want to play?
What could you do?
So it boils down to 3 choices at the beginning. What are those 3 choices?
If you'd be a fighter,
A martial type.
I'm gonna punch you or I'm gonna hit you with something.
Yeah, you're when there's combat, you're on the front line, just hacking away at people and shooting with a bow, whatever it is. That's you. No magic. You're not spellcasting.
Or
Nobody likes you.
you could be a spellcaster.
Just kidding.
Yeah.
Considered like a mage type
Wizard.
wizard.
That's the question you have to answer. Do I want to be more of that and not worry about spells and stuff, or would I rather I like to be a spellcaster because that's why I want to play a fantasy game? And your third option is
Both. A hybrid, a mix of the two.
you can do that. Every system has that. You can be part fighter, part wizard. What's the caveat to that?
Not as powerful in each.
Right. That's what I always want to play a hybrid. That's my choice because I love the option of in any situation I can use my magic or I can pull out my weapon. Again, I'm not going to be as good of a fighter maybe as an actual just 100% fighter or as good of a magic user as a 100% wizard, but I have both in my pocket. So
All
it
the
makes
tricks.
me better.
All the tricks.
What would you guys?
Brandon's tip here. If you're a new guy,
I didn't ask for Brandon's tip.
Oh, here we go. Let's have a song too.
Just a tip.
Brandon's tip.
but yeah, Brandon's tip here. If you're a newbie to tabletop role playing
That's not a
game,
nice word to call somebody.
if you're a noob to tabletop role playing game, if you're new to this, I suggest playing a martial or a fighter kind of character, just because the idea of hitting something is easy to get behind. All of these games, that's what I suggest to start off with.
Nope, wrong.
All of these
Wrong.
games.
That's an
Brandon's
example
my
of
tip.
terrible advice.
No, it's not.
Terrible
Listen, hear me
advice.
out. The magic systems in all of these games can be very complicated to learn. If you want to learn the game, start off with a martial.
Nope.
That's my tip.
The reason that that's such terrible advice, and I'm glad you brought it up, is because this is a fantasy game. You're playing a fantasy character in a fantasy setting in a fantasy world, whether that's sci-fi, cyberpunk, whatever. But it's a fantasy game. If you want to get a new player hooked into the thing, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I've always wanted to play a wizard. I've always wanted to play Harry Potter," and then you go, "Well, it's better if you start out as a knight in shining armor." No, that's not their fantasy.
I'm not saying
Whatever you want to play, you should play.
I'm not saying that you have to do this. I'm just saying if you find the system to be intimidating, learn the system as a fighter.
You're a horrible person, and you should be horribly ashamed.
No, I'm not.
of yourself.
You're saying martial is easy? It's just weak and easy?
Not in DC 20.
Nope.
D&D is what he's talking about because in D&D, any martial, your fighters and all those people, they are just so generic and boring and. But if you're using Pathfinder or DC 20 especially, or a lot of other games, your fighter classes are just as complicated and crunchy as your spellcasting ones. So if you're just playing D&D, sure, play a human fighter and learn the game, but you'll be bored as hell. Unless that's what you like. A lot of people love that class. But if that's not your fantasy, you will get turned off.
I'm just saying that the magic systems can be intimidating. Learning all the different spells and how to cast them.
Okay, this is how to get people into RPGs. Don't tell them
Right.
that it's intimidating.
It can
Anti-man.
be. I'm not saying it. I'm saying it can be. I'm saying if you are intimidated by learning that, maybe learn the game as a fighter.
Check and see if you're having a heart attack. Now's a good time
I'm about to.
check that. I can see, yeah. I think your eyeballs are bleeding.
They're not. No, I'm 73 beats per minute. I'm not having a heart
I
attack.
don't even know what that means.
I'm doing
kinda low.
I'm actually I have a good resting heart rate for being a fat guy.
So once you get that squared away and you've decided, yeah, I'm gonna try a fighter. I want to try da. Now you got choices. Because now you got, 5 different classes for fighters? Do you want to be just, what type of fighter? Do you want to be somebody who uses a bow and arrow like a Robin Hood or a Legolas and you're standing in the back and you're just picking them off? That's a fighter. That's called a ranger. That's a class you can pick. Mm-hmm. You can be like a knight in shining armor. What would that be?
A paladin.
Paladin. These guys, they make a holy oath or a vow and they're just, always going to do the right thing and fight with honor and all that stuff. If you want to be that.
That's ridiculous. I want to be like Wolverine and just
Yeah.
go crazy.
Yeah, you could just be a fighter.
Can you just go nuts?
That's a
You can just go nuts. You got a rogue. That's a class of fighter you can be, and they're like they can be your down and dirty ones, your backstabbers, your assassins, or you can be like the guys in Princess Bride, where you're more of a swashbuckler duelist or a pirate type. Those are your rogues. Think of just any roguey, Han Solo, blah, blah, blah. So you got all these different types of fighters to pick from. And then if you decided you wanted to be a spellcasting class, what are those? What kind of different... They're different ones.
Wizards.
Wizards, your generic
Sorcerers.
wizard. Sorcerers that cast differently.
Warlocks.
Warlocks are fun. What are they? What makes them different?
They have a deity or patron that gives them their powers. You just ask somebody for powers.
Somebody's giving you these powers and you owe them for it.
You owe them big time.
Cleric is a holy spellcaster, and they do
Holy
have a deity that
do.
they're the whatever of, the champion of or something. So there's all different ways that you can play any of these things, and then the hybrids, each class. So you're going to start with your wizard. Do you want to be more of a fightery wizard? Do you want to be more of a wizardy fighter? There's all different subclasses for that stuff. But right now you're just picking your main thing. If it's a fighter, what kind of fighter? From what we just said. If it's a spellcaster, what kind of spellcaster? There's druids also. That's a nice fantasy. You're a nature spellcaster. You're using the element and you're using nature spells and those kind of things. That's a fun fantasy for a lot of people. There's a barbarian fighter. If you want to be that kind of, the Wolverine type or whatever,
Psycho.
Conan.
Yeah.
You can play that kind of fighter. It's all up to you. And a lot of that's in your imagination too. You decide. Another easy way to get somebody who doesn't know anything about that in is to say just that. Like, what character would you play from your favorite comic book or movie or TV series or novel series? And if it's Wolverine or if it's Conan or if it's something, now you can start going, okay, then you want to pick this kind of class.
Yeah, you adapt it right over.
Yeah.
You could adapt everything. Any fantasy you have could just slide right into this.
It could be somebody very obscure, one of the smaller characters from one of these novels that you just happen to have always liked and be like, that'd be fun to play that in a game. Well, you can make that. And then that's your personality. You can just use that. It'll still be your personality unless you're a really good imitator.
Not very many.
That's rare.
That's
So
you're probably not gonna be playing D&D with your friends.
it's a good place to start from, though, to narrow things down for anybody who's like, I don't know what should I play? I don't know what to play. I don't know what to play. We did that with my wife. I was like, who's your favorite? Who do you want to be? I already knew, Legolas. So she's playing a ranger, which is a ranged fighter, forest person, and her race, which you're also going to choose your race. She chose the elf. So simple. Look how easy.
So that's the next step is the race.
You're going to pick your race because that's
Species.
You get to
ancestry.
choose. It's a race
It's your
because
race.
species is just stupid. It's so stupid to call something a species. Ancestry are people you're related to by blood that are dead.
Yes.
So you're a race. Whether you're from Norway or whether you're from the Congo, you're all the same race. You're human. All humans are the human race. But in these fantasy games, you have different races. Like you can play a human, and that can be fun. You can play an elf, a dwarf, a halfling, hobbit type. You can play somebody who's a dragonborn, right? You can play a demon type, a tiefling in D&D, or a fiendborn in other games. You can play somebody who's kind of an elemental type, or earth, air, fire, or water.
Can I be an
based.
angel?
You could play an angel. I don't know, the opposite of the tiefling or the fiendborn. You got some angel blood in you.
There's monster races too, like goblins that people can play.
Goblins, orcs.
Giantborn.
Giant, half giants, yeah.
There's the furry people.
There
Gotta
are
mention it.
beast people, yeah.
Beast people. So yeah, on the more adult spectrum of that, you'd play beast person. You can maybe say you're a werewolf or a werebear or something like that, or something.
I'm a werebear.
What if I want to
Cat
be a Care
people.
Bear?
But then there's
Care Bear.
Can I be a
There's-
Care Bear? Mm-hmm. Yes.
there you could be a
Elephant people,
elephant people,
turtles,
turtle people,
Teenage Mutant Ninja
rabbit
Turtles.
people.
Oh,
That's maybe
Yoshijimbo,
more for the
Paragon.
kids.
Yoshijimbo.
or the childish in heart. So the class you play, and I know this is very basic, but this is for people who don't know what this is. You're going to now get things you can do, skills that you can do, and abilities that you have based on the class that you choose to play and the subclass that you choose to play. Same thing with the race,
Exactly.
only not as much. Race is going to give you a little bit of different stuff. Dark vision, water breathing, a climb speed.
I can fly.
Some you can fly. Some give you a little bit of
spells.
magic
A
stuff.
little bit of magic
if you're
spells,
elfish
yeah.
or something.
Halflings are small, so they can fit in between people's legs. They're really quick around people, so everybody has a little bit of stuff. They can run right between their legs.
It's
and
always
grab
with the
other stuff.
between the legs with the halflings.
Because I'm a halfling.
What do you
I
think
wanna
that
be
means?
between legs.
I think he's talking about his little thing between his legs. Halfling.
So yeah, you're gonna get different things, and then also, that can affect your social game a lot.
Oh, big time.
Because in certain places, depending on what your DM has, no dwarves allowed here. We don't like your kind, and you're playing a dwarf. That's fun. It's fun to role play that. Or people love dwarves here, and you're welcome, and then you get discounts on everything, and or high, all kinds of different ways. A lot of people pick their race and then never role play it. You can, but where's the fun in that? If you are playing, like he said, a monster race, a goblin or an orc, you're just gonna wander around town and nobody's looking at you twice. Come on, role play that up.
No.
Why are you the misfit? Why are you the one that doesn't want to kill everybody? It's fun. Lord of the Rings had it. The elves and the dwarves, they didn't like each other.
No.
Gimli and Legolas were good friends though, so you can have that stuff in there. Yeah. So when now you got your class, you got your race, you're gonna have every system has something the attributes, your might or your strength, your speed or your dexterity or agility, your intelligence, how smart you are, your wisdom, how wise you are, your charisma, how unbranded you are.
Yeah. If you've
You're
ever
actually
shut up.
Some have more, some have less. D&D has, I think, 6 or 8.
6.
6.
And
D&D is 6.
DC 20 has 4. DC 20 is just might, agility, intelligence, charisma. D&D has constitution in there, how hard you are to kill, how hard you are to poison. Wisdom is in there.
So how do you get these numbers?
So you usually roll them
Okay.
with 6-sided dice. Okay. Sometimes there's a point buy thing. Every system's gonna have a different way to do that.
Okay,
but
so it's a little
basically what you're gonna do is put the higher numbers that you have, whether it's by the dice you rolled or by the choice you have of the math. You put those where you want them for your character. So if you want your character to be strong, you're obviously going to put that in the strength and the might, the higher numbers.
Okay.
If you want them to be strong and fast, you're going to put it in your strength and your agility. If you want them to be strong and smart, you want to put that into your intelligence. You decide. It's your character.
You can build it however you want with these numbers. Okay.
But those define your character quite a bit when it comes down to what you can do on your turn or outside of combat.
So how do these numbers work? Is it like good and bad numbers too? You end up with some that
You have
things
high
that
and
you're not
low.
really good
You have
at,
high and
right?
low. So you're going to get lower numbers. And if you don't care about, being fast because you're just a big brute, then you're going to put a low number into your agility or dexterity, whatever they're calling it.
Okay.
Because that's not important to you. If you want to be a big brute, this is just dumb, don't put any in your intelligence. Why would you waste that?
Intelligence is my dump stat.
But then you're going to have skills. These are the things that also get you. Every game's going to give you different skills, and these are usually based on what your attributes are. You're going to get bonuses in these skills based on how strong you are, or how intelligent you are, or how charismatic you are.
Also, going back to like the gymnast, you'd be good at those
athletics,
type of things.
acrobatics.
Okay.
You want their physical skills.
Right.
If you're like the rogue type that wants to backstab and all that, you got stealth, you got sleight of hand, pickpocket, trickery, deception. These are your social skills. Perception is a big one. How aware are you? If you want to be like, you got like investigation, if you want to play like a detective-y type character. And they can be based on different things, like investigation in D&D, I think, is based on your intelligence score. In other games, it could be based on your wisdom score or your
so you
choice.
start getting some synergy going at this point. You start going down a
Right.
path. You're following a place. You're bringing this character home.
Yes.
Right.
So we don't want to get too much into this, but so this is how you're rounding out your character. You're getting whatever your abilities are, your stats, and then you're getting your skills based on those things. And this is how you're rounding out your character. There's a big list of these things, and you decide what points you put where to make your character specialize in this or that. Then if you're a magic user, you're going to pick some spells because you have to have your spells. If you're the fighting type, you're going to pick your weapons and your armor.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to all of this. We're just giving you the basic overall stuff, Brandon.
Yeah, don't get mad, Brandon.
Then you got your basic things like, okay, how do you die in this? Well, everybody either has health points or hit points. You know it from video games. Those get hacked away. They get down to 0. You're dead. So everybody's going to have different versions of that depending on what you chose for your skills and attributes. You're going to have an armor class or a physical defense. How hard is it to hit you with a spell or weapon? And then you're going to have a movement speed. If usually there's a grid, there's a map, you got squares, how many squares you can go in one turn, how many feet you can go in one turn. Different characters are different. So those are kind of just every character's basic thing. And then once you got all that done and you've chosen all that, you roll the dice, you fill out your character sheet. Every different system has a character sheet where you can put all this stuff in there. You're just going to work on, who is your character? What's their personality? What's their backstory?
Is that important, or is it the character sheet more important?
They're both just as important. If you're going to role play, you better know your character's personality.
Okay, so you want to know everything that you've put down. That's why we're going slowly.
Yes, slowly.
You're building it up. Building it up, yeah.
You're building it up, and now you know your character. You've carefully chosen so many different spells in these systems. If you're going to play a wizard or a sorcerer, you got to carefully pick those because they're going to define who your character is. Some you can change those out every day. Other classes you pick, those are the spells you choose, and you have them for life. So it just depends on the system you play and the class and subclass you choose. Again, we are just scratching the surface.
Are you saying that
No. I might be. What?
that choosing your spells is complicated?
No.
No, nothing's complicated. That's a good point, though, because I know there's this, what do you call it, paralysis out there now, where people get overwhelmed.
Analysis paralysis.
I get it. I felt it myself. I lived in Ireland for a year with my wife, and then, if you've ever been there or you're Irish, you know, I came back here and went to the grocery store, and I had to do it in 2 trips because while I was gone, they decided to put an entire aisle just for ketchup.
It is crazy when you go over there and all the stores are just a store and has
Just
like
a store.
2 things of everything, and that's it.
Here's your ketchup. Here's your mustard. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Here's your milk. So I get that that could happen, but that's why you level up, because you're not going to have as many choices at first level, and then you get a few more at second level and third level. So you're not going to have as many spells to choose from when you're first level.
That goes into your fantasy too. You start thinking, what is my fantasy? Am I a airbender? Am I like
Right.
a windwalker? Am I a fire person? Then you look at the fire spells. Like, what is your fantasy? And that's when you even get closer to that point.
So glad you brought that up, because here's a big issue that I have of people. You're going to hear optimizers, power gamers, min-maxers. Nothing wrong with min-maxing. I'm a min-maxer, I think. I don't even know what it means. But I guess I am one. Yes, when you're playing your character, you'll hear us talk a lot about specializing. So yes, there's a big list of spells you can take, and the optimizers and the power gamers, they're going to take the best spell. This does the most damage. This has the best battlefield control. This costs the least amount of spell points or mana points or whatever you're using to cast your spells. How about, instead of that crap, you just go, what kind of, as Rick said, do I want to be an airbender? Do I want to be a battlefield control magic user? Do I want to be a healer? Well, how about you just pick those spells then and specialize? Now, you don't have many overwhelming choices, do you?
Nope.
No, it's very simple.
Your fantasy is clear.
You're not trying to be everything to everybody.
are.
You're all trying to work as a team.
Yeah.
Nobody can excel at everything. A lot of players they make that mistake. I want to be good at everything. Well, then why do you need a team?
You really only need a pencil and a piece of paper to play these games. You don't even need dice, really. Dice make it fun. A lot of the systems will use dice, but not necessarily every TTRPG, tabletop role-playing game, uses dice. It's mostly imagination, pencil, and paper.
What doesn't use dice? Who doesn't use dice? What? What?
Not every single one uses dice.
Who doesn't?
I know there's some out there.
Who? Which one?
He knows it.
Just making shit up. Just making shit up.
It doesn't have. You don't have. You even for D&D, you don't have to use dice. You can use your DM.
Yeah, you don't need dice. You don't even need a table. You don't even need friends.
You want a D20.
You want a D20.
They're so fun to roll.
Look,
They're
man,
just
they got.
fun.
This is a
They're fun.
D4. They got a 4-sided dice. The joke among role players is don't step on one of these. If
It'll kill you.
it falls off your table and you step on it, you say goodbye to your foot.
Dice aren't expensive. It's like $6 for a set of dice, right?
Ow!
You can get
It's
cheap
okay.
plastic dice, just anywhere. You know, don't start getting crazy with your dice unless you want to. It's fun. Like people get expensive dice. Some people get $200 dice sets made out of yak bone. I don't know where they get it from.
Yeah.
Or you can go on Google.
Yeah, salesman.
You can go on Google and say roll a d20, and it will have there's digital dice on Google that'll do that.
That's true.
You can do that, but if you can afford a phone or a computer to do that with, you can afford a fucking dice.
You can afford. Yeah.
I'm too broke to buy dice. I just have to buy a computer instead and use Google.
Point being is you don't have to spend money on dice or even on a big rule book or whatever to play this game.
I'm Brandon, and I don't like dice because they're too confusing. I can't roll them very well because my name is Brandon, and dice hurt my feelings.
See what he did there? Ladies and gentlemen, that's called role-playing.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
No, but he's right. This is not an expensive game to play.
No.
It really isn't. There, people can sink a lot of money into this hobby, just like any hobby. You can play stickball, or you can go buy a $500 baseball bat and a
Right.
blah, 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 and all the padding and the exact uniforms and all that, but you don't need it. You only have a piece of paper and a pencil and your imagination. If you want to play D&D, we're not going to try to talk you out of it, but I am going to urge you not to. If you're going to start with a new system, start with DC-20 because it's ground floor too. It's in the beta. You can get the whole rule set right now for $30. Link below, PDF. And then the game system, the actual thing is going to come out when it's finished. But it's happening as we speak, and it's so much more fun in every way.
Yeah.
D&D is again very generic. They're not fixing anything that's wrong with it. They just won't do it. But they're charging people a lot of money to be able to play this game now.
Yeah.
If you just want to play D&D because it's D&D, okay, you can do that. More power to you. Everything we just said in this video will help you with that. It pertains to every aspect of D&D.
And Pathfinder, it applies to
And-
all these games.
People like, so Pathfinder is, okay, so you got D&D on one spectrum, which is kind of basic and blah, 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 very kind of mediocre. On the other end, you got Pathfinder, which was, they came out because they were like, we're going to fix D&D. And they went the opposite direction. It's a lot of rules. It's a lot of, for all these choices we talked about you can make and skills you can make. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. You got to roll a dice to take a poop. And you got to describe what color, and it depends on the color of your poop, depends on what you can do that day. I mean, I'm exaggerating a tiny bit, but everything is so rules heavy, which can be great if you're into that. If you're really into the immersion and you really want to pay attention to how much weight you can carry and how many coins will fit in your pocket and all of that stuff, this is the one for you.
For sure.
If you want the perfect blend in the middle, DC-20. That's why it's great. It's not as basic as D&D. It's a lot more cool. It's not as rule crunchy as Pathfinder. DC-20 is customizable. You can make your own weapon. You can make your own race. You can make your own everything within the rules of the game itself. So if you're really into having your character that you create from scratch, DC-20 is the way to go.
Yeah.
I agree.
Do you? Or are you just saying that because of the channel? Are you a D&D, what do you call it, mole? Plant?
Yes, a plant.
Russian bot from Seattle?
No.
Do you need to buy the rules?
No, you don't need to buy the rules. Yes, it can be helpful because it'll help you learn. But you don't need to buy
Someone
it.
should have
want
it.
them?
Someone should have it.
Yeah, as long as one person in your group has them, or if you're playing D&D online, there's a thing called D&D Beyond where you can make your character, it keeps track of all your stuff, it'll roll the dice for you, it'll keep track of how many hit points you have and how many spells you've cast and all that
Pathfinder
stuff.
has one too. There's
Yeah.
Pathfinder has one, DC-20 is going to have one. If you want to play it that way, plenty of ways to do that. You're probably going to have to get a subscription to those things sooner or later.
Yeah.
Sooner rather than later.
I do like having a book though, just being able to touch and
Yeah.
turn the pages and find what spells I want to see and skip over what I don't.
That's because you're old.
It's because he's old.
Yeah, I know how to read.
I prefer the digital content because it's easier to flip through.
Rick reads upside down.
How do you flip through it? How do you flip through digital content?
When you do choose a table to play at, they vary greatly, depending on the style of the game that the players want and the dungeon master wants. You know, is it going to be more combat heavy? And that's not your thing. You're probably not going to have fun at that table. If they like to do more exploration and talking and not a whole lot of combat, but you like the combat, you're not going to have fun at that table. Usually people will get together and agree, what kind of game are we going to play? What's going to be the environment? What's going to be the tone? What's going to be all of that? And some DMs are just like, this is what my game's going to be. You want to play it or not? Some, they all get together and they go, what do we all want to do together?
Yeah.
It's a democracy. And if you're in the minority on that one, just find another table that plays the way you want to play. We've all played in games that just too much hack and slash for me. I like the storytelling aspect as well, and there just wasn't any of that in there. Played in games where they just don't want to role play. They just want to do the dice math, and that's the story to them. I would rather not play a role-playing game if that's the way it's going to be, so I just wouldn't do that. Some people like that. If that's what you like, find a table that does that. It's kind of like you want to play poker, right? Well, there's many versions of poker.
Yeah.
What, you want to play Texas Hold'em table? You want to do Texas Hold'em tournament? No, I like dealer's choice. Then don't play at the Texas Hold'em tournament table. You could have like a strip poker game, and maybe that's what you want to play. And then you see Brandon sitting there, and you're like, not for me. No, I'm not playing.
That is offensive. I have a body of a god. It just happens to be Buddha.
We're gonna see how this series does. This for beginners series, and we'll do more and explain more. These are just the basics of getting started, and even choosing if you want to play one, and what kind of one of these you want to play. Do you want to play with a person like Brandon? Do you want to play with a person like Rick? Probably not.
Probably not.
No.
I do it, but I have a high threshold for pain.
So check out our other videos on role-playing. We need those videos in there, right?
Yeah,
We have role-playing videos, don't we?
Mm-hmm.
Accent videos? I think we have an accent
They're
video.
not going to be up there. They're going to be at the end,
Oh, they're
which is
They're gonna
right
be two
now.
little things.
Bye.